For more on this story, we can bring in Marina DELLA, GIUSTA, behavioral economist at Reading University. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on France 24. Now, what we are seeing today in Italy is really unprecedented. Even if the rate of new infections does come down soon, will we be seeing the economic impacts of the coronavirus for years to come?
We probably will, yes. It's something that we will see not just in Italy, but I fear everywhere, especially as the response of other countries is just seems to be following events rather than being ahead of events. So, some measures, not just the ones that have just been announced at the EU level, but some local measures are already in place. There's been a suspension of mortgage payments, and there's been a promise of the Association of Italian Banks for some kind of support for families and for small firms that may be struggling with repayments even later on in the year. And there are, in general, some discussions around subsidies that will be available. But obviously, this is quite massive, and it's no way under control yet.
Indeed, it's no way under control. But given that, it's going to take some time to see if these measures are actually taking effect, what can the government do and the EU do to cushion the economic toll of it?
So, what's been announced this evening is very promising. Obviously, some form of calming down the financial markets in the first instance by making sure that there is going to be government support for economies in the months to come. And obviously, there is obviously the clinical side of things. So there's the research, there's the coordinated response, there's the trying to stop the spreading of the virus, which is super important, and it's important initially, of course, for health reasons in the first instance, and secondly, because of the economic fallout of people not being able to travel and not being able to move. The school closures alone cause a massive impact on families, of course. And a country like Italy, particularly, that relies very much on family care very often for children, means that, very often it's the grandparents that offer that care. So at the moment, these are the people who are in the demographic that is locked in their homes because they're most at risk. So rather than being people who offer support, right now there are people who need support, and so there's been a lot of reversals of care circuits as well around this, and I guess a whole reorganization of what's happening in families to try and source necessities and to try and look after each other. Hospitals, of course, are struggling massively. We've seen lots of appeals even today. There are financial appeals, there are donations even by stars to try and support the hospitals, particularly in Lombardy, because their capacity to provide care has been far outstripped. They're really working to 100% capacity in horrendous conditions. So they've described the situation as being bombed, and it's quite harrowing actually to read everything, and obviously to have loved ones there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a really unprecedented what we're seeing. Considering that not just in Italy, but even here in France, Italy as well, the layoffs have already begun. This is going to have more than just a health impact on the country. It's going to leave more than just a scar in a way.
Oh yes, it will, and it will lead. Of course, it's going to have very uneven impacts because, of course, we keep being told to organize to work remotely, and of course, some categories of work and of people, typically the better off, are better able to organize themselves around this, and there are a lot of jobs that instead need to happen, with physical presence, and of course, in Italy at the moment, this is entirely allowed. There is a provision, amongst the provisions are of course those for the workers that need to be present in person. However, the business is disappearing because the demand for a lot of services, and it's not just the tourism industry, is waning. So that's going to be a problem as well.
Marina DELLA, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.